Hello, Wama non story kone. One non story to our Wama Kukoman. Haunting Wama Kinia Kurokoy. Wama non story koa. Never Wama Kurokoy Wama Kuhore to the Hiva. Yamuna Buhoma Yakotari. Wama Kinasiha.
Antropólogo llama papui mi heite, wama ku kontaomi, wama ke estudando mo ohte taomi heja. Ya temra wai krayoma, wama ku mai, shori mi ham greko, kami yama ohtam ohte mi kam kulipa.
The more you accomplish, the more jealousy you inspire. The more jealousy you inspire, the more vigorously you are attacked by your jealous competitors who've been outdone. And this tends to be stronger in a discipline like anthropology whereas there's absolutely no agreement about anything. They not only don't have standards of proof, they don't even want to agree on whether there's a real world or not. So given the lack of any real standards for settling issues, the attacks become more vigorous. And I think Napoleon Chagnon has the distinction of being the only anthropologist that's ever been accused of genocide.
Les Indiens qu'on appelle communément Waika se nomment dans leur langue Yanomami. La densité de la forêt, l'humidité, les serpents, les moustiques les ont tenus à l'abri de tout contact avec ce qu'il est convenu d'appeler la civilisation. Leur société obéit à des règles qui lui sont propres. Leur culture est parfaitement vierge de toute influence extérieure. Les étudier, les connaître, c'est nous connaître nous-mêmes si nous savons nous garder de tout esprit de supériorité. Les seuls matériaux dont ils disposent leur sont fournis par la forêt. Le bois, les lianes, les feuilles, les os et les dents des animaux et des poissons. Toute leur technologie en découle. Pas de classe sociale, pas de chef, pas de dieu, pas d'argent.
The Yanomami are relatively unique in the modern world because they are one of the few tribes remaining that lived in the kinds of conditions that our ancestors lived in, without a nation state to constrain and interdict their political behavior.
What we are seeing in the Yanomami is something approaching humanity as it existed for 500,000 years. What we see in New York or Brasilia or Paris is the way humanity has existed only for at most 3,000 or 4,000 years. So from a purely scientific sense, they are extremely valuable as a source of knowledge. We should learn everything we can about them, what they know, how they feel, what their motivations are.
Certainly there are a lot of other anthropologists who've contributed to the awareness of the Yanomami in the world, but it still is a fact that probably 3 or 4 million American students alone have read my book on the Yanomami. And they became famous largely through my publications and through the films that I made with Timothy Ash.
When I first went to live with the Yanomami, they wanted to know my name. I told them that it was Chagnon or Chagnon, but they couldn't pronounce it. It sounded to them like their name for a pesky bee, Shanki, and that is what they decided to call me. To the Yanomami, I am the man called Bee.
By then, a lot of survival groups, conservation groups, were beginning to learn more about the Yanomami, and they all wanted to have the Yanomami in their portfolio because everybody is looking for the most desirable product to sell. Even among rock stars like Sting, they all want a part of the action and be associated with the Yanomami now that they have become famous.
Unlike our civilization, which uses natural resources with little or no thought for the future, the Yanomami are perfectly adapted to the place in which they live. Undisturbed, their way of life could survive for another 20,000 years and more.